Yeah, hi, dear aspirants. Today we are going to see the 15 major important topics of the polity which generally UPSC aspirant ignore with respect to their preparation for the prelims examination. So every year we people used to go multiple number of times the revision of Lakshmi Kant or your foundational materials with respect of the polity and governance. We revise the same famous chapters again and again like parliament, fundamental right, president, prime minister and likewise and so on. But UPSC often asks question from those particular areas that aspirants barely revise. These are the silent zone of polity preparation, which you should not take a risk with respect to ignoring them. So the today's lecture is about 15 such untouched topic that can give you an edge in the examination. So let's begin it by one. So first we are going to see the topic which reflects the constitutional silence or constitutional vacuum. Now, these are the most interesting aspects of the Indian Constitution because it is not that kind of thing that has been written. It is like silences. It is based on constitutional conventions, not written in the Constitution. For example, India has had several deputy prime minister, like the first deputy prime minister, like Vallabhbhai Patel, Morarji Desai. Then we have Mr. Lal Krishna Advani. But the constitution does not mention this position of deputy prime minister at all. So there is a high chances the question may get asked from it. Similarly, the constitution does not mention about cabinet committees, even though it mention about cabinet, but it does not mention about cabinet committees such as cabinet committee on security and so on. So the question may get asked around it or revolve around it. Another major example is 0R in Indian Parliament, which is an Indian innovation with respect to important questions. It is widely practiced but not mentioned anywhere in the constitution or the rules of procedure. So UPSC loves asking such questions because aspirants do assume everything important must be written in the constitution, but it is not so. Second, those articles which are there in the constitution but which are rarely discussed. Most of you might be having the whole soul information with respect to article 19, 20, 21. You might have mugged them as well. But UPSC sometimes asks the questions from less discussed article. For an example, article 143, it talks about the advisory jurisdiction of the president. Article 142, it talks about the super plenary power of the Supreme Court to do all the justice. So this kind of articles may get asked because these are that kind of articles which we might have ignored with respect to our preparation. Another important one for an example is Article 361, which gives immunity to the president and the governor from criminal proceedings while in office. So recently you might have heard about West Bengal governor, the criminal proceeding which have got initiated at West Bengal against him and all. So this Article 361, it deals with it. Similarly, you can read about Article 361 capital A and all. So these articles are often ignored during our preparation, but there is a high chances, high outcome, high cost benefit because they can appear in the prelims examination. The third important aspect, the less discussed constitutional bodies. When aspirants do revise regarding the constitutional bodies, they majorly focus on those constitutional bodies which are very much in news like Election Commission, CAT, UPSC and likewise. But the constitution had established other several important constitutional bodies as well. Like under Article 280, we have the Finance Commission, which recommends the distribution of tax revenue between the center and the state. So again, many times the question have got asked from it. Thereafter, we have National Commission for Scheduled Caste, a constitutional body which have got established in 90s for safeguarding the interest of scheduled caste. Similarly, we have National Commission for Scheduled Tribe. Apart from this, Article 350B, it talks about Special Officer for the Linguistic Minority. This question have got many times in the UPSC CAPF examination. So these bodies rarely get detailed attention on the part of the UPSC, but they always remains high probability area for the UPSC question. Then the fourth important aspects which you people need to remember are the parliamentary devices or the parliamentary instruments. So India is a parliamentary democracy, or we can see the Westminster model of governance. So we can't ignore the parliamentary procedures which are being used in day-to-day practice in the parliament. For an example, there are different motions as well, like adjournment motion. Adjournment motion allows the Lok Sabha to discuss a very critical and urgent matter of public importance by interrupting the normal business. Another one is the cut motion, which member can move during the discussion on demand for the grants during the budget discussion and all. So these are the motions which have the high propensity to get asked in the examination. Apart from this, you may read about policy cut motion, economic cut motion, token cut motion, and likewise. These are again low hanging fruits with respect to the upcoming examination. Okay, previously as well, many times the UPSC have asked large number of questions from these parliamentary devices and instruments. The fifth important thing is the privileges, parliamentary privileges to the member of parliament, as well as to the member of legislative assembly and the legislative council. Now, when we talk about the parliament, the member of parliament being a member of that august house, they enjoy certain privileges to ensure the independence and dignity of the legislature, which is the second pillar of Montesquieu's separation of power. For an example, the members, they do have freedom of speech inside the parliament. They do have immunity from legal sanctions for statements made during the parliamentary proceedings. The House also has the power to punish individual for the contempt of the parliament. So, like judiciary, they do have the legislature, they do have the contempt power as well. Very few aspirants know about it. So these privileges, they are very important for your examination. And these privileges, since they have been partially derived from the Constitution and partially derived from the British parliamentary conventions, that's why sometimes it becomes tricky for the aspirant. Then the sixth important topics are the emergency provision, which Dr. B.R. Ambedkar called it. Those kind of instruments which may be seldom used in the future parliamentary proceedings of India or the future constitutional proceedings of India. Now, most aspirants, they remember the basics of emergency provision, but the hidden details with respect to emergency provisions, many students they ignore, but they are very important. For an example, during national emergency under Article 352, the federal structure, it becomes highly centralized. Hence, the whole power balance used to get shifted toward the central government. The central government, it gets the authority to legislate on the subjects from the state list as well, which have been enshrined under Article 249, 250 of Indian Constitution. So that you need to remember. Another important aspect is that when we talk about the constitutional amendment, the 44th constitutional amendment had been brought in to safeguard against the misuse of emergency power. So you need to look toward Article 44 with, Constitutional Amendment 44 with that particular perspective as well. What kind of safeguard this constitutional amendment had brought in order to prevent the misuse of emergency. Like, for an example, it brought in the concept of written advice of the cabinet is necessary before proclaiming the emergency on the part of the president. The seventh important aspect which students ignore is the ordinance power, which have been mentioned under Article 123 and Article 213 of Indian Constitution, respectively for the union proceeding and the state proceeding. So the President of India under Article 123 can issue or can proclaim ordinance when one house of the parliament or both houses of the parliament is not in session. Same applies with respect to the state legislature under Article 213 of Indian Constitution. So ordinance related aspects are very important because ordinance is having the same power like that of law. But the thing is that you must remember it must be approved by legislature within 6 weeks of reassembly of the legislature, and the duration of 6 months is there. If not approved, then it automatically lapses. That you need to remember, because the issue with respect to re-promulgation of the ordinance have been criticized many times by the Supreme Court, by High Court, in various cases like Krishna Kumar Singh versus State of Bihar, and so on. Thereafter, the important aspects which you need to remember is the special provisions which are mentioned in the Indian Constitution, from Article 371 to Article 371J. These provisions have been brought in to address the regional imbalances of providing tribal rights and providing administrative needs in those especially needed region. For an example, Article 371 capital A provides special protection for the religious and social practices of Nagaland. So all these articles of 371A and its subpart you must mug up. Similarly, Article 371G, it provides similar protection for Mizoram. From G for this particular Mizoram, you can remember. Article 371J, it talks about special provision for backward Hyderabad Karnataka region. So this kind of articles are frequently overlooked on the part of the aspirants during the revision, and many times the question used to get asked. The ninth important aspect is the debate between money bill and financial bill. This is a classic trap on the part of the UPSC. So as per Article 110, you people know money bill can be introduced only in the Lok Sabha, and it deals with all the aspect related with taxation, appropriation and all, and it do require the prior recommendation of the President of India. Now the UPSC would be making the comparative analysis between money bill and the financial bill. Regarding the certification of money bill, the speaker would be the authority as per Article 110, and Rajya Sabha cannot reject that particular money bill within 14 days. They have to return that particular bill with suggestion or with no suggestion. Otherwise, it deems to be accepted on the part of Rajya Sabha. Then under Article 117, you need to look toward the basics with respect to Article 117 subclause 1 and Article 117 subclause 3, which deals with respectively the Financial Bill 1 and Financial Bill 2. Financial Bill 2, which has been reflected under Article 117 subclause 3, it deals specifically with respect to expenditure from the Sarkari Tijori, that is, the Consolidated Fund of India. While Article 117 subclause 1, which is mentioned under Article 117 subclause 1, it is nothing but metamorphized form of the money bill, in which apart from the aspects related with the money bill, we are also taking into consideration peripheral aspect. For an example, if any particular bill is related with subsidy which are being provided in the PDS. So apart from the subsidy, if it is talking about the PDS infrastructure, biometrics and all, it would be coming under Financial Bill 1. Then the 10th important topic is the local self-governance, which have been brought in after the 73rd and 74th Constitutional Amendment Act. So what used to happen once we read about union, once we read about state, our mind used to get fatigued, and then we try to overlook all this basic local self-governance institution. But please do remember, once you would be in the service, you need to majorly work with respect to this local self-governance institutions only. Like you would be the Jila Panchayat CEO, you would be the district magistrate, you would be the ADM, likewise. So that's why it's very important for you to understand the institutional mechanism revolving around it. For an example, you need to focus on the State Finance Commission, which reviews the financial position of the panchayats and municipalities, which have been brought in by the 11th and 12th schedule of Indian Constitution. Apart from this, another important body is the District Planning Commission, regarding which the question have got asked in 2012 prelims. So it is that particular DPC is that particular body which consolidates the various DP's developmental plans of rural and urban areas. The article related with it, the constitutional status of it, many times the question have got asked. For the metropolitan areas, similar to the DPC, we have the Metropolitan Planning Committee. So please focus on the articles which are related with that, like Article 243ZZ with respect to the DPC, District Planning Committee, and so on. So the UPSC is notorious with respect to asking these conceptual questions, which may put you in the trap. Then the 11th important topic is the anti-defection law. So by the 52nd Constitutional Amendment in 1985, you all people know we have brought in the anti-defection law, which have been mentioned under 10th schedule of the Indian Constitution. So you need to understand regarding all the technicalities with respect to the anti-defection law. You need to understand who is the deciding power with respect to the anti-defection law. You need to understand whether it would be having a judicial review power. You people might be knowing about the Quixote Holohan versus Jachulu case of 1993, wherein the speaker decision with respect to defection or anti-defection had been brought under the judicial review. So all this thing you need to remember. Okay, then the 12th important topic is the important constitutional schedules, because you people know from last 2 to 3 years there have been large number of questions with respect to schedules of Indian constitution and parts of Indian constitution. So when the constitution had got formed, we did have only 8 schedules, but right now we have brought in the 12 schedules in the Indian constitution. The 9th schedule had been brought in by the first Constitutional Amendment Act. 10th schedule we have just discussed had been brought in via the 52nd Constitutional Amendment Act. 11th and 12th schedule have been brought in respectively via 73rd and 74th Constitutional Amendment Act. So this 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th schedule that you need to remember, because it is very, very critical for your examination. Regarding the 8 schedules, many times the question is to get asked with respect to the scheduled language under Indian constitution. Regarding the 9th schedule, in 2018 prelims, they had asked regarding which Constitutional Amendment Act had been brought in this 9th schedule. Apart from this, what kind of law have been protected with respect to the 9th schedule? Do we have any specific judgment which provide judicial scrutiny or the cutoff date with respect to judicial scrutiny of the law embedded under 9th schedule, like Keshwanand Bharti case, Vaman Rao case of 1981, or I.R. Kohilo case of 2007? That all becomes important. That you need to remember. Okay. Then the 13th important aspect which the student used to ignore is the important constitutional amendment. Many aspirants might be having the information regarding 42nd Amendment Act, 44th Amendment Act, but several other amendments are equally important. Like 35th and 36th Amendment, it talks about amalgamation of Sikkim into India. The 61st Amendment, it reduced the voting age from 21 to 18 years. That has increased the adult franchise in India. So whichever the state would be in news, like Goa, Sikkim, etc., just focus what kind of constitutional amendment are related with their integration or amalgamation. Apart from this, you can also focus with respect to 91st Amendment Act, which talks about the limited size of the Council of Ministers, which have been restricted to 15% for the normal state and 10% for the union territories like Delhi and Puducherry. So that you need to remember. Apart from this, the very important Constitutional Amendment Act like 101st Constitutional Amendment Act, which have been brought in the goods and service taxes, the federal regime of goods and service taxes, a major reform with respect to the indirect taxes, that you can refer in your answer. Then the 14th important aspects which you people must stress upon, must impress in your mind is the hidden concept with respect to the judiciary. So as all of you know, judiciary is the third important pillar of Montesquieu principle of separation of power. So certain judicial concepts are frequently ignored by the UPSC aspirants, like, for an example, curative petition. So curative petition, all of you know, is a genesis of 2002 case of Ashok Hurra versus Rupa Hurra case. So curative petition is that kind of final legal remedy which after failure of the review petition is available in front of the Supreme Court. It aims to prevent the miscarriage of justice in severe and exceptional cases. That you need to remember. Apart from this, you need to remember regarding the collegium system, which have been brought in after the third judge case. Democratized form, it came after the third judge case. So that you need to remember. You need to remember regarding the history and evolution of the collegium system, like first judge case of 1981. That is nothing but S.P. Gupta versus Union of India. Second judge case of 1993. And the third judge case of 1998, which was nothing but the reference which have been made by the President of India. So that landmark evolution of cases and the system you need to remember. And last but not the least, you people need to remember regarding important constitutional principles or doctrines. Okay, so the doctrines, it helps the courts to interpret the constitution. So you can remember the major doctrines. All of you know about the basic structure doctrine, propounded by the Keshwanand Bharati case. But parallelly, you need to focus on the other advanced doctrines as well, because now the UPSC is making leaps and bound progress with respect to asking tough question. So you can talk about the doctrine of eclipse. You can talk about doctrine of severability, which is there under Article 13. You can talk about doctrine of pith and substance. You can talk about doctrine of colorable legislations likewise. So please do remember, the UPSC wants to check your basic conceptual knowledge, foundational knowledge from all these aspects. So it's very essential that you should focus on all these gray areas, on all these dark areas, because that is only going to give you the dividend. It's not likewise those topics which many aspirants are focusing, like fundamental right, like DPSP and all. There is a less chances of them to get asked in the examination, because even the UPSC research and development team knows that you might be thorough with respect to all these aspects. So the thing is that the crux of this story is that whatever I have told to you, those all 15 important topics for the polity, that you need to brush up at. And if you might not have touched upon those particular aspects, you have to focus on those subjects from now onwards, because the clearing the prelims is very important, and even the people used to miss the prelims even by 0.10 marks. Okay, so study, revise and brainstorm in a very strategic manner, and that is what is the requirement of this examination. Thank you so much. Have a great day ahead. Best of luck.